Welcome to my channel Fanlate with Onushua. In today's class, we are going to complete Dickens's David Copperfield's novels, Chapter 33 to Chapter 64. In the previous video, I have made a very detailed discussion on the summary and the analysis of Charles Dickens's novel David Copperfield. If you missed the video, I have given the link in the description box. Please go and watch it. So, let's begin today's session. So, in chapter 33 to chapter 40, what are the incidents that we see happening in the life of David Copperfield? First of all, so in the previous video, we have seen that Mr. Burkiss had died keeping a large amount of money to Mrs. Clara Peggotty, or better to say that Mrs. Clara Peggotty Burkiss, David, Emily and Mr. Daniel Peggotty. So in chapter 33, what we see here is that David had taken Clara Peggotty along with her to Doctor's Common to settle her matters, okay, to settle her financial and all the legal matters. And there David Copperfield, along with that of Peggotty, that means Clara Peggotty, both of them had met Mr. Murdstone. Mr. Murdstone, the stepfather of David, who had been the villainous character in David's childhood. So after so many years, both David and Clara, they met Mr. Murdstone, who had come to Dr. Commons to get the license for his second marriage. So Mr. Murdstone is going to remarry, and on seeing Mr. Murdstone, Clara Peggotty started yelling at her and blaming him for the death of Clara Copperfield, that was David's mother. Then again, we get to see that as David and Dora, they started having some feelings for each other, but that feeling came to the front in Dora's birthday party organized at Mr. Spenlow's house. So Mr. Spenlow invited David to his house, and in that particular party, David tried to be very calm and composed, and he did not even reveal his jealousy and insecurity of the men around Dora. He tried to be very calm, composed and jovial. So Dora had a friend whose name was Miss Julia Mills. So Miss Julia Mills, she actually took David and Dora together and they confessed about their love. Okay, so ultimately David and Dora, they started actually their secret courtship and they decided to keep it secret initially. And David considered that this particular moment later on, when David Copperfield was recapitulating his past days, then he said that the dating period with Dora, or the courtship period with Dora, was the happiest moment in his life up to that period of his time. Okay, so the relationship or the secret courtship with Dora had been the happiest moment with his life. And when David started recapitulating that, and when David was about to write his courtship with Dora, so just before, a day before writing that particular episode of his courtship with Dora, David had actually seen in his present, because we see that the entire narration of the novel had taken place in the past tense, okay? Because David was recapitulating the moments of his past and then he was writing down it as a narrator. So whenever he was just about to write the episode of Dora, then he saw one of his daughters were wearing the ring of Dora. And this made David very emotional about Dora. Okay, this actually enkindled the memory of Dora in David's heart once again. Traddles, in the meantime, we can see that Tommy Traddles had told David about his fiancée, but the name of his fiancée had not yet been disclosed. So Tommy Traddles also told that he was also again in a relationship with a lady who is the fourth child of the 10 children of her curator father. So Tommy Traddles' fiancée, or Tommy Traddles' beloved, was the daughter of a curator who had 10 children, and she was the fourth of the 10 children of that curator, and that lady used to take care of her mother and her sisters. Traddles also told David about the even more worse financial situations of Mr. Micawber. So right from the beginning, we have seen that Mr. Micawber had gone through a lot of financial troubles. That even led to his imprisonment, even the debtor's prison. Okay, but despite that, he kept on engaging in the financial troubles. Now, to an extent that the authority had seized his property. So Traddles actually requested Peggotty to buy some of the items that the authorities have seized, so that at least Micawber had not to pay much to the pawnbroker. Okay, and Peggotty actually agreed to help him. At this particular moment, Miss Betsy came to David and said that her financial situation has been ruined. Okay, Miss Betsy Trotwood, who had been the aunt of David and the caretaker of David, the actual guardian of David, after her mother, then Miss Betsy also she also was going through a lot of financial hiccups because of her faulty business decisions. And this made David very much upset, because he thought that the moment he was about to propose Dora or to start a fresh life with Dora, after the lot of hardships in his life since his childhood. So at this particular moment, the thought of poverty completely perturbed his peace of mind. And he went to Dora and when he decided to say this to Dora. So when David actually said about Dora to Miss Betsy, she actually was a bit disappointed, because she felt that David was actually encouraging a relationship that was far beyond the imagination. Okay, so in this financial crisis, David decided to quit his job as an apprentice in the Spenlow and Jorkins. Okay, in the previous video, we have seen that David, since Miss Betsy wanted David to be a proctor, therefore she took her to Doctor's Common, almost like a kind of a law firm, okay, where the different company of lawyers used to sit. And David actually got a chance to be a clerk to Mr. Spenlow. And Dora was the daughter of Mr. Spenlow. So David decided that since this job was not paying him much, and in this financial crisis, so it's better that he should quit his job and start something else. Okay, so when David actually went to Mr. Spenlow to take the refund, because at that particular time, in order to join a company, probably the apprentice or the clerk had to pay some amount of money. Okay, but when David asked for the refund of the money, Mr. Spenlow denied that he could not refund him. Then David was again upset, and in this particular moment of crisis, David met Agnes. Agnes also had a bad news that Uriah Heep had completely taken over her father, Mr. Wakefield, and now Uriah Heep and his mother, Mrs. Heep, they have shifted to the Wakefield family, and they are trying to be the actual, the controller of the Wakefield house. Okay, so both of these friends, David and Agnes, since we know that they were very good friends since their childhood, so both of them were going through a lot of social, financial and emotional crisis. So Agnes, she came to Miss Betsy to soothe her because of her new financial hiccups, and Agnes and Betsy, they have discussed about Uriah Heep's behavior towards Mr. Wakefield. And Agnes, at that particular period of time, had suggested David that he should better join Dr. Strong as a secretary, because Dr. Strong was already looking for a secretary who would help him to write his dictionary. And we have seen so far in the novel, and even later also we would see that Agnes was almost seemed to be the solution to all the problems of David. Okay, and that is why in the previous video we have seen that Agnes had been called a good angel in David's life. Okay, so Agnes, whenever we find that David is in some kind of trouble, Agnes was had always been there to help David in some way or the other. Okay, and at the same time, Miss Betsy, when she heard about Uriah Heep, she also castigated him. Okay, that he was actually a very, very tricky person and nobody liked Uriah Heep. Then when David approached Dr. Strong as part the suggestion of Agnes, Dr. Strong was very happy to keep David as his secretary. And they started together the composition of Dr. Strong dictionary. They started compiling Dr. Strong's dictionary. Okay. In the meantime, we can see what was happening in Dr. Strong's life, that we know that Dr. Strong's wife Annie had a cousin, Jack Meldon, who initially went to India, but later on in the previous video I have already discussed that in India he could not stay his fit for longer and he decided to came back because he was missing Annie. So Jack Meldon always had plans to disrupt the marital bliss of Dr. Strong and Annie. So Jack Meldon had made a plan to take Annie for theatre. Okay, Annie somehow managed to make excuses and she visited Agnes to avoid any further dating with Jack Meldon because Annie was a dedicated wife. Though initially David and Mr. Wickford both have doubts of Annie, but later on in the coming chapters we would see that the doubt will get completely dispelled. Okay. So Mr. Dick, he had been a very sweet-natured person. Okay, we can see that if Miss Moucher is the one who was dwarfish in her contour, but had the maturity of mind. Whereas in Mr. Dick, we can see that he had a large contour, but a very childish and a very simple, very good-natured personality within him. So Mr. Dick, since he knew that Miss Betsy had always been there in his tough time, so he decided to help Miss Betsy and was actually pondering over that how he would be able to help Betsy financially. Okay, so Mr. Dick met David and Traddles. And these two friends, David and Traddles, they have suggested that one thing that Mr. Dick can successfully do is to copy the legal manuscripts. And in this way, he would be able to earn money. And we know that Mr. Dick had a psychosis. That was, he believed that he is possessed by King Charles I whenever he started writing his autobiography. But David and Traddles suggested that since he was about to copy only the legal manuscripts, so he won't be possessed by King Charles I. And actually it became true, and Mr. Dick successfully had done this particular business of copying the legal manuscript and was able to bring some money to the family and some relief to Miss Betsy's financial challenges. In the meantime, we can see that Mr. Micawber invited David and Tommy Traddles in dinner and informed them that he was going to join Uriah Heep's company in Canterbury. This particular news made David very uncomfortable because, see, some of the persons like Mr. Micawber, Daniel Peggotty, Mr. Dick, they have always been very good with David. Despite the financial problems that Mr. Micawber had been stepped into multiple times in his life, but initially, apart from all these problems or all these eccentricities of his nature, we know that Mr. Micawber is a nice man. Okay, so David started feeling very uncomfortable, but he could not stop Mr. Micawber to join from Uriah Heep's firm. Okay, because he knows that Mr. Micawber was in need of money. David ultimately decided to tell Dora about the financial problems that he had been going through. But we know that Dora is a little immature girl, okay? She was a little childlike who always wants to build a kind of a fairy tale, who actually used to live in a fairy tale world. Okay, so when David actually said to Dora about his financial problems, Dora became hysterical at the idea that she would have to live in poverty. So whenever David tried to make her understand that Dora should learn about to keep the houses and to accept the problems in the life, she became hysterical again and again. And she even insisted David not to talk about the financial problems because she was not able to take it anymore. So David felt very helpless at this behavior of Dora, and he requested Miss Julia Mills to make her understand. Though Miss Julia Mills tried to convince Dora, but it was all useless, because we know that Dora was too childlike to understand all these complexities of life. Okay. Now the problem arose once again in David's life. Mr. Spenlow, Dora's father, ultimately came to know about David and Dora's secret courtship. And he summoned David. He was in a very angry mood, and he asked David that he should stop his relationship with Dora at this particular moment. And if David would fail to do so, he would disinherit Dora and would send her to abroad. Probably Mr. Spenlow had in mind that David was trying to convince Dora in order to gain some financial benefits out of it. But he did not know that David was truly in love with Dora. Okay, and David said that he could not be able to do that because Dora was very dear to him. Coincidentally, that night, Mr. Spenlow went through a carriage accident and he died. Then Dora became very much upset with the death of her father, and she decided to stop meeting with David. Okay, because Dora at this particular moment became completely guardianless, and she is a girl who was not able to take up any decision on her own. She needed a guardian in her life. Okay, David became very much distressed with this entire episode of Dora and Mr. Spenlow. Then he decided to visit Agnes in Canterbury. So in that evening, David also met Uriah and his mother, and Uriah's mother was trying to spy on David and Agnes, because Uriah Heep and his mother actually had a doubt that probably David and Agnes were dating each other. Though they were friends, and Mrs. Heep, Uriah Heep's mother, Mrs. Heep was trying to trying to be the spy on them, did not leave them a chance so that these two friends can open their heart out to each other and comfort each other. So Uriah Heep went straight to David and asked him that if he loved Agnes. Then David said that not at all. Both David and Agnes were good friends, and David had someone else in his life. Okay, so Uriah Heep, even after saying that, could not believe David. Okay, then again he started spying on both of them. So when everybody was having the dinner, Mr. Uriah Heep, he toasted the wine in name of Agnes, and he announced that he was going to marry Agnes. On hearing that, Mr. Wickfield became completely hysterical. He yelled to David that, see how much Uriah Heep had control over Mr. Wickfield. Okay, he became a completely helpless father. So Mr. Uriah Heep was the one who became the villain of the second part of the novel of David Copperfield. Uriah Heep was the one who actually led Mr. Wickfield to alcoholism. Mr. Wickfield had a plight in his life, that was he lost his wife very early. Okay, he lost Agnes' mother very early in his life, and he missed her so much. And by taking this particular advantage of Mr. Wickfield's weakness, Uriah Heep led him to alcoholism. And now Mr. Wickfield probably seemed to have no control over himself. Okay, but on hearing that, he started reacting. Then Agnes immediately came and he dragged his father into the home. Okay, and David was very much upset with the entire episode. But Agnes had persuaded David that in order to come out of his situation, his problem with Dora, David should write to Dora's aunts, because Agnes is the one whom we can see that is she always has some mature solutions to the problems of David. See, probably she could understand that Dora needed a guardianship, and that is why she told David that it's better that she should consult her aunt and sought permission to meet Dora. In the meantime, we can see that David actually met Peggotty one night. Peggotty means Mr. Peggotty. one night, and Mr. Daniel Peggotty had told David about the 3 letters that they received from little Emily. You remember little Emily, David's first childhood sweetheart, who had eloped with Steerforth, and we have discussed about it in the previous video. So if you have not seen my previous video, then please go to it. The link is in the description box. So coming back to the session, David met Mr. Peggotty and he told that he had received 3 letters from little Emily and some money. And Mrs. Gummidge, she actually sent a reply to one of the letters of little Emily by saying that she should immediately come back home because her uncle was badly missing her. And when Mr. Peggotty was discussing with David, at this very same time, surprisingly, David had seen that Martha Endell, Martha Endell was a friend of Emily, and both Emily and Martha, they used to work at Mr. Omer's tailor shop. Martha had also brought the disgrace to the family. So David discovered that Martha Endell was trying to eavesdrop the conversation between David and Mr. Peggotty. As part the suggestion of from chapter 1 to chapter 45, we can see that as part the suggestion of Agnes, David actually wrote later to Dora's aunts, whose names were Lavinia and Clarissa. So Lavinia and Clarissa were the 2 aunts of Dora, and when they received the letter of David, they became happy and they said that David is always welcome to discuss about his courtship with Dora. David was a bit nervous, so he decided to take Tommy Traddles with him. But Tommy Traddles had a problem. His hair actually used to be lay flat. And therefore, David asked Tommy Traddles that, hey buddy, why don't you just comb your hair? Because he was feeling nervous. He was going to talk to Dora's aunts about their courtship, their relationship. And he would have to convince them, right? So he was taking Tommy Traddles and who was looking a bit shabby. So David asked him that, please go and comb your hair. At least you should look prepared. Then Tommy Traddles said that he could not help it because this is a kind of the family trait of having this kind of hair. And that is the reason even his fiance's sisters are also making fun of him. So this is a very amusing conversation between Tommy Traddles and David. Somehow, David reached to Dora's aunts and they actually accepted David's courtship with Dora. Even they started inviting David once in a week to their home. And David found that Dora's aunts are actually too much pampering Dora, the way exactly Dora is pampering her dog Jeep. And this made David very uncomfortable because Dora was a grown-up girl, right? So instead of pampering her, the aunt should teach her about to keep the houses and to become more mature. In the meantime, we can see that Dora had nicknamed David as Dodie. So this sounds a little bit like that of Daddy. And even in the coming chapters, we could see that Dora would behave like a child, even being the wife of David. So Dora always needed a father figure, a guardian in his life. So in David, he had got both his lover as well as his father figure. That is why probably Dora used to call David Dodie. So one day Dora and Agnes, they also met, and Dora was very astonished to see that David, despite being in friendship with Agnes for so many years, how he could love Dora. Because Dora could understand that Agnes is perfect for David from all the angles, but she was happy that at least David loved her. So when Agnes was asked by David about Uriah Heep's plans to marry her, Agnes said it very straightly that at any cost she would not marry Uriah Heep. So when David went to see Dr. Strong and say him good night, so on that particular night he saw that in Dr. Strong's study, Uriah Heep was trying to convince Dr. Strong of Annie's fidelity. And when David and Mr. Wickfield were there, he even manipulated David and Mr. Wickfield to express their doubts on Annie's fidelity. Dr. Strong became completely upset with this situation, and he blamed himself that it was not Annie's mistake, it was his mistake, that despite being old, he had actually married a young and beautiful girl like Annie. Okay, and this created a kind of a tension in the marital bliss of Dr. Strong and Annie. The only relief in their problem was Mr. Dick, who used to visit them and amuse them with his simple nature. One day, Mr. Dick actually asked David, "Do you think I am simple-minded?" And David said that, "Yes, you are." Then Mr. Dick said that, "Then I am the right person to solve the problems between Dr. Strong and Annie. Because the mature people like you, or the mature people who are around Dr. Strong, okay, they are too polite to bring this straightforward discussion in between the two." So what he did, he actually went to Dr. Strong's house. Okay, he decided that he would went to Dr. Strong's house. In the meantime, we can see that Mrs. Micawber, he wrote a letter to David by telling that Mr. Micawber had become changed. Eventually, he became very greedy, and this surprised David to an extent. But this was probably expected because Mr. Micawber was in the company of Uriah Heep, who was selfish. Okay, so his selfishness and his greed was trying to overshadow the good nature of Mr. Micawber. So finally, the only good thing that was happening among all the chaos and the troubles and the bad news was David and Dora were getting married. Okay, David and Dora, they got married with everyone's wishes and blessings. Okay, as you can see in the picture. But even after their marriage, David and Dora, they had to face some challenges because Dora was a terrible housekeeper. Since we know that Dora was a very immature, a very childlike girl, she did not know how to keep the houses. So the servants that they had appointed, they seemed to cheat both Dora and David by taking the advantage of probably David's absence and Dora's simplicity. So whenever David used to write in magazines and in newspapers, now at this particular point of time, David became a writer. Okay, so David started his career as a clerk. Initially, David started his career as a worker in Mr. Marston and Quinian's company. Then later on, David became a clerk in Spenlow and Jorkins. Now David became a writer. Okay, he used to write for the newspapers and the magazines. And Dora used to sit beside David whenever he was writing. So Dora, when he makes some mistakes, then she used to go to David and said that, "Remember that I am your child wife." Okay, so Dora had been the child wife of David. She was on one hand the wife of David, but she wants to be treated as a child of David. Okay. In the meantime, we can see that as Mr. Dick had decided that he would go and talk to Dr. Strong, so he decided and he went to Dr. Strong's house. He brought Dr. Strong and Annie together and allowed them to speak up their heart. Annie at the time, she broke out in tears. Okay, she said that she loved Dr. Strong from the bottom of her heart. Okay, and she also said a very important line that there can be no disparity in marriage like unsuitability of mind and purpose. Now, Mr. Dix, this little effort brought Dr. Strong and Annie together. Okay, and it was able to restore their marital bliss once again. Both Mr. Wickfield and David, they were surprised to see the fidelity of Annie, but was at last they were happy that Annie and Dr. Strong's problem were resolved in a happy way. Next Next, from chapter 46 to 59, we can see some important changes that were happening in the life of David. So one day when David was passing in front of the house of the Steerforth, okay, so at this particular point we need to keep in mind that Steerforth was still missing along with Emily, okay. So at that particular point of time, he was summoned by Rosa Turtle, who was again full of hatred for Emily and David. And there David met Litimer. Litimer told David what happened to Emily, and that was very pathetic. So after some period of time, Steerforth, when he was done with Emily, okay, when he got bored with Emily, he left Emily and he went away. Then Litimer went to Emily and proposed her marriage. Okay, so now just try to understand the mentality of Steerforth. He actually played with the heart of Emily. He got bored with her, and then he put Emily to be the future wife of Litimer. Okay, so when Litimer went to propose Emily, Emily got hysterical. And therefore, Litimer locked Emily up in her room so that she won't kill herself. But somehow little Emily managed to flee the house and she became missing after that. David felt very helpless on hearing this account of Emily. So David came up and he told Mr. Peggotty to meet Martha. Okay, and David and Mr. Peggotty, they met Martha and asked her to help them find little Emily. Martha assured them that she would help them. And David found in the meantime that Miss Betsy, again with that mysterious man, was blackmailing her for money. Now this time David could not resist herself. She went straight to Miss Betsy and asked him about the identity of the man. Then Miss Betsy said that this man was no other than her own husband. He was not dead, but he used to extort money from him. Money from Miss Betsy. So the days were passing and David came to a realization that his and Dora's marriage were a bit difficult. Okay, because Dora was a very simple girl. Okay, and David's and Dora's preferences were different. So David was not exactly happy in the marriage with Dora. Yes, he loved Dora, but he was not exactly happy in the marriage. So David decided that probably if a child comes up in their life, that would make Dora mature. They planned a child and Dora became pregnant, but she miscarried the child. And this miscarriage led to her illness because she lost the uses of her legs. Therefore, David had to carry Dora, okay, upon his back in order to take him or down him upstairs or downstairs. In the meantime, what happened? Both David and Traddles, they received the letters from both Mrs. Micawber and Mr. Micawber with a request that they should come and immediately meet. David and Traddles should come and immediately meet Mr. Micawber because Uriah Heep, as expected, had cheated Mr. Micawber and ruined him again financially. So, in the meantime, another thing that happened, that Martha helped David and Peggotty, and Martha told initially David where was little Emily. Okay, David went and he saw little Emily, but he did not directly rescue little Emily because he thought that it would better that if Mr. Daniel Peggotty would come and rescue little Emily. Okay, so he told Mr. Daniel Peggotty and Mr. Peggotty came and ultimately he was able to rescue Emily and brought her to his arms. Okay, because Mr. Daniel Peggotty was very much fond of his niece, little Emily, whom he used to consider as his own little child. Now we can see that Mr. Peggotty, he met Miss Betsy and narrated the whole story of Emily. That Emily, when she went from Litimer. Okay, then she actually went to a place by the sea, and she got fainted, she got ill. So a woman whose husband was on the sea, he actually discovered little Emily. He brought, the couple brought little Emily to their home. They nursed her back, and then little Emily decided to go to France and then England. Even she thought to come to home to Mr. Peggotty, but she again changed her mind by thinking that probably nobody in the family would accept her. Okay, therefore, Mr. Peggotty had decided that since little Emily had gone through a lot in her life, therefore Mr. Peggotty decided that he should take little Emily to Australia, a place which is secure and safe for her, because nobody will be able to know her, okay, in Australia. And Mrs. Gummidge will also go with them. So who are going to, from the Peggotty's family, who were going to Australia? Mr. Peggotty, little Emily, and Mrs. Gummidge. Okay, but someone else will also join them. Okay, we will see that later. David, in order to bid a final farewell, okay, to the Peggotty family and to meet Ham, he decided that he should at least go once to Yarmouth. Okay, so on his way, he met Mr. Omer, and Mr. Omer told about, he was happy to know that little Emily was back, but Mr. Omer also requested David to help Martha if possible. Now, another thing happened, that Mr. Micawber, who actually was so much disgusted with Uriah Heep, he promised that he would avenge Uriah Heep. And as per his plan, he collected all the evidences and he made a list of Uriah Heep's frauds. And then, along with David, Traddles, and Miss Betsy, Mr. Micawber, and also with Agnes, Mr. Micawber actually went to Uriah Heep and exposed him. Now, Uriah Heep, at the point of being exposed, he actually discarded his humble nature and became violent to everyone. Okay, so Mr. Uriah Heep was thrown out of the house and everybody was reconciled. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Micawber were reconciled, and Betsy, actually, since there was no Uriah Heep, so Anne and Mr. Wickfield got their home back. Betsy, even at this particular happy occasion, proposed that it will be better for Mr. Micawber and his family to shift to Australia and to start their life afresh. And Miss Betsy would loan them in order to settle in Australia. Okay, because with the exposure of Mr. Uriah Heep, who actually manipulated even the wealth of Miss Betsy, they would be able to restore all the wealth. Okay, so with a little amount of that wealth, Miss Betsy would loan Mr. Micawber to get settled in Australia. But with this particular happy moment, something sad had happened. Dora, who had been suffering from that illness, actually her situation got deteriorated. Agnes went to David and Dora's house and took Dora's head on her lap. Dora was just counting her breaths. At the same time, Dora's dog, Jeep, he actually came to David, started licking his hand, and he died. Okay? And when Jeep died, at the moment, Agnes came from the stairs and she reported David that Dora also died. So this part of the novel seemed to be the most touching of all the narration that had been carried forward in the novel. We can see here the connection and the bond between Dora and Jeep, okay? Because both of them died the same moment. Mr. Micawber actually tried to professionally arrange the finances between Betsy and him because he actually did not want to make Miss Betsy hopeless. Okay, therefore he tried to professionally secure Miss Betsy's amount. Traddles, in the meantime, had discovered that he would be able to bring back the money of the Wickfield and Miss Betsy. Agnes had decided that she would rent her house and would run a school to secure her finances. David decided that he should also go to abroad. Uriah and his mother, they left the town, okay, and nobody knew anything about them. Betsy's husband died and she was completely free of any threat. So everything was actually going good despite the death of Torah. Okay. But we know that if something bad happens, probably something better is waiting. So with that particular hope, we can see that something better probably is waiting for David also. When David, for the last time, he decided to go to Yarmouth, then he actually, on reaching Yarmouth, he saw that there was a violent storm, okay, in Yarmouth. And a ship from Spain was shipwrecked. Okay, there was only the one surviving sailor who was actually waving his hand by wearing his red hat so that people would come and save him. So out of nowhere, Ham entered into the scenario. He tied a rope around his waist to save the last surviving sailor. But in the process of saving the life of the sailor, Ham drowned and even the sailor was also drowned. So both of them died. In the morning, David discovered that the sailor was none but Steerforth. So this particular incident, the shipwreck of the violent storm, had taken the life of both Steerforth and Ham. David actually went to Mrs. Steerforth to report the death of report the death of her son Steerforth, and this particular news had almost shell-shocked her. Okay, she could not answer. She became stiff, rigid, and Rosa Durtle, in order to make her cry, she started blaming her for raising a monster like Steerforth. But at this moment, Rosa Durtle also broke out and said that Rosa Durtle had loved Steerforth throughout her life. Okay. Now we can see that Micawbers and Peggotties, they were finally started sailing for Australia. Everybody was happy, and David, Miss Betsy, all of them went to bid them farewell. And to his utter surprise, as I told you a few minutes ago, that along with Peggotties, someone else was also going, that was Martha Endell. Okay, we know that Mr. Daniel Peggotty had always been a very kind man. So he decided to take even Martha Endell with him so that she would again get a chance to start her life afresh. So from the Peggotty's family, Mr. Daniel Peggotty, little Emily, Mrs. Gummidge and Martha Endell, they were going. And Micawber's family. Okay, so these two families were going to Australia. So after they went, David also decided to go to abroad, and David moved to Switzerland. There again, he became very lonely. He used to receive the letters from Agnes, and in those letters, Agnes actually told David about her feelings for him. But David was resolved that unless 1 year passed from Dora's death, he would not think of love or marriage. Okay, so after the completion of 1 year, David actually came back. Okay, in the meantime, we can see that Tommy Traddles got married when we came to know that Tommy Traddles' fiancée was Sophie Cruller. Okay, so Tommy Traddles, despite being poor, he was happy with his marriage with Sophie Cruller. David met, interestingly, his old physician, Dr. Chillip, who is now presently the neighbor of Mr. Murdstone. And from Dr. Chillip, David came to know that Mr. Murdstone and Miss Murdstone, they were cruel as ever, and they even brought the end of the life of Mr. Murdstone's second wife, just as they were responsible for the death of Clara Copperfield. Okay, some people never change, right? So in the final chapters, what we see, David returned to Betsy's home finally, where Peggotty, that means Clara Peggotty, and Mrs. Betsy and Mr. Dick, they were living together. So everybody was happy, and David asked Miss Betsy that if Agnes had any lovers. Miss Betsy knew everything. So she decided to taste David's patient and said that Agnes had many suitors, but she loved only one person. Okay, David, when he went to meet Agnes, he found that Mr. Wickfield got back his composed nature. Okay, his alcoholism went off. Agnes became successful in running her school well. The joviality of the Wickfield family was back. Even Dr. Strong was also living peacefully with Annie in their marital bliss. So everybody was happy. David, then at this particular point, he decided to shag off his humbleness, and he went direct to propose Agnes, and Agnes reciprocated David's proposal. Okay, so everybody at that particular point of time were happy. All of a sudden, David received a letter from Mr. Creakle. And Mr. Creakle, he actually came to know about David's popularity. So Mr. Creakle invited him to see his prison. Now Mr. Creakle became a magistrate. Okay, so Mr. Creakle, you remember Mr. Creakle? The headmaster of the Salem house. Okay, that I have discussed in my previous video on David Copperfield's summary from chapter 1 to 32. Then Mr. Creakle now became a magistrate and he invited David to see his prison. David, along with Traddles, they visited the prison and were surprised to see their two acquaintances. One was Uriah Heep, who was imprisoned for the charge of robbing the Bank of England, and the other was Litimer, who was also arrested for robbing someone. Okay, and Uriah Heep cursed everyone that everyone should be imprisoned at least to have the experience of prison. Okay. Okay, along with that, behind Litimer's arrest, Miss Maucher was also responsible because Miss Maucher was the one who recognized him in the street and stopped his gateway. So this Miss Maucher, who actually unknowingly helped little Emily to elope with Steerforth, actually she did one thing good, she made Litimer caught, okay, and get arrested by the police. So finally, we can see that David and Agnes, they were having a very happy married life with their 3 children. So one day, David found that Agnes, when David was home with Agnes and his 3 children, he found that Mr. Peggotty came from Australia to visit David. And he told that in Australia, ultimately, Micawber was having a successful life. He became a magistrate there. Okay. As we know that good people will always have good results at the end. Right? We must at least be this much of optimistic. So Mr. Peggotty also told David that little Emily, Mrs. Gummidge, both were doing well, and Martha had got married to a farmer. Okay, so after that, Mr. Peggotty went back to Australia. He stayed actually London for a month and then he went back to Australia. After that, he never returned. Okay, so in the last chapter, David told us about all other characters' whereabouts, that Miss Betsy and Peggotty, they grew old but they were happy. Mr. Dick was still trying to finish his autobiography and was again possessed by King Charles I. Dr. Strong had finished his dictionary only up to D. Okay, that means it will go on. And Traddles became a successful lawyer and he was happily married to Sophie. Okay, and Mrs. Steerforth and Miss Rosa Durtle, they used to quarrel as ever. And about Agnes, David said that Agnes had become the forever light in the life of David. Okay, so Agnes, as I told at the very beginning of this video, that Agnes had always been the solution to David's problem. So Agnes was not only the good angel in David's life, but also the light of his life. Okay, so I'm ending this video today. If you like this video, then please do share and subscribe the channel, put a comment and a like. Thank you.